Our objective today for the first lesson in Module 2 for 5th grade is that I can multiply multi-digit numbers using patterns in place value. So it's important to know we're only using whole numbers today, so there's no decimals and no fractions. So I'm just going to start with this simple problem, 4 times 2. And I know 4 times 2 is 8, but now I'm going to make it a little bit harder. I have 4 times 20. What is 4 times 20? Well, I know 4 times 2 is 8. Since I'm multiplying by a 10, I know I can add my 0 at the end. I'm in the tens place, so 4 times 20 must be 80. So if I follow this pattern, I have 4 times 200. So 4 times 2 again is 8, and my zeros tell me I'm in the hundreds place, so I know I must have 800. All we're really doing today is using the patterns in place value to help us solve bigger problems. So for example, we have this. Let's say we have 40 times 20. Okay, we have 40 times 20. You can think of it as 4 times 2, 4 times 2, times 10 times 10. Now, why is that? Okay, so I'm going to look at my problem. I see the only digits I have that are not 0 are in the tens place, and it's just 4 times 2, so I can take those out. They're separate. We can do 4 times 2, and then just times the place value that each of those numbers are in. So, for example, my 40 is in the tens place. My 2 is in the tens place. That's why I'm multiplying 10 times 10 at the end. So if I solve this, I always start from the left, just like I'm reading. 4 times 2 is 8, times 10 times 10, which I know that's easy, that's 100. So now my problem gets a little easier to solve. 8 times 100 is 800. It's just a more complicated way of showing that 40 times 20 is 800. Instead of just doing, 4 times 2 is 8 and adding my zeros, I can actually see why 40 times 20 ends up with a product of 800. So let's try a different problem. Let's say I have 60 times 200. The first thing I'm going to do is pull out my digits that are not 0. So I have a 6 times a 2. And I'm not done here because I know 6 times 2 is 12, but 60 times 200, that doesn't make any sense for it to be 12. So I can't just stop. I have to multiply again, but this time I'm going to take out my place value. So my 6 was in what place? Let me see my ones. Oh, it was in my 10. So I put a 10 times the place value of my 2, which is in the hundreds. So times 100. And from there, my problem gets really easy. I can do 6 times 2 is 12, times 10 times 100. Let me see, 10 times 100. 1, 2, 3 zeros. 12 times 1,000. So my answer must be 12,000. Now, if I think about my little trick, I can come back up to my problem. I'm going to do this in green. 6 times 2 equals 12. 1, 2, 3, add 3 zeros at the end. And I can see how 60 times 200 is equal to 12,000 by breaking it up like this. We're going to do some more examples because this can be a little bit tricky when the numbers start getting big. So let's do one with some bigger problems here. We have 6,000 times 50. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to start by taking out my 6 and my 5. So I'm going to make 6 times 5. I'm saying in parentheses because I need to know I need to multiply those two numbers specifically times the place value of each of those numbers. So my 6 and my 5, I have my 6 in my thousands place times the tens place because my 5 is in the tens place. So now I can multiply these out. 6 times 5. I know that's 35 times 1,000 times 10, which is 10 10,000, because I just slide another 0 in there. And then it actually gets pretty easy. 35 times 10,000. I should have 4 zeros at the end. 350,000. So now that we know how to multiply multi-digit numbers using patterns and place value, I'm going to go ahead and leave you with a practice problem to do either on your iPad, in a notebook, on a Post-it note, index card, whatever. But you're going to go ahead and try this one out. 40 times 500. I would like you to try and set up the parentheses. Let me get rid of that. To try and use the parentheses expressions to show that you understand more than just adding zeros at the end, but that you can break up everything into the place value patterns.